Welcome to the Infinity Loop Group. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey as we dive into empathy. Great anger is more destructive than the sword. Indian proverb.
And the reason I brought that up is empathy and anger are actually opposites, which I'll get to in the chapter. Okay. The more we grow in connection, the more we become self-aware, the more we practice self-inquiry and inquiry into another's point of view, the more we'll grow in our capacity to experience and show empathy.
And the more you ask questions and inquiry, the more you have understanding for someone's point of view, and the easier it is to show empathy, compassion. I think it's a lot easier to let go of someone doing something that you might perceive as negative upon you. Or it can be not even perceived. It can be something truly done negatively to you. The more you understand why someone does it, I think the more you're able to let go and have empathy from it, because it's like as simple as when we were younger, I was always told, oh, they only make fun of you because they're jealous of you or anything, right? There is some truth.
They're overcompensating.
Right, they're overcompensating to that. And so we just need to remember that child taught
that
into our
wisdom.
Right, into our everyday life.
Yeah, because it's the infinity loop is, I always think, infinity loop eyes, it's about the contemplative mind, the contemplative heart is the observer, is the widest view. And that is going to be past the trigger of anger to the widest view to see, how do I connect to my heart? How do I connect to the other person? How do I become self-aware?
How are my emotions misguiding me?
Yeah.
Right, because the time when we need to...
Or our right.
Right, well, because it's the
our
time
emotional dysregulation based on whatever trigger hit us that is causing an ego defense.
Right.
Right?
Stopping us from having empathy.
Yeah. To know and love ourselves in a healthy way, while being humble and curious about what we think we know and react to without question, all will spill out into our worlds and transform them. When we have what Dr. Dan Siegel calls a yes brain state that's mindful and receptive versus a no brain state that's reactive and harsh, it allows the other to relax and doesn't trigger a threat reactive state in them, which is fight, flight, freeze, or faint, collapsing, which are all threat reactive states where one's no longer open to what's going on. So what Dan Siegel is saying is how we co-regulate other people. Like, so when we have a yes brain that is open, and receptive versus the no brain, which is in the very reactive state, we influence the other. That's the infinity loop.
To me, the best example of that is when you provide criticism but end with a question, right? It drops someone's defenses. You are creating a whole nother environment to talk about something that you are being critical of, but in a welcoming and encouraging way.
You are doing
not
not as if it's a trick, but you really have a yes brain.
Right.
That's a really good point. So this applies to how I talk about working with our anger. We are alert to our anger we feel, but by being mindful, we don't let it take over our brains. So we can feel our no, which is something needs to be honored or protected. So that's like that boundary. That's like, whoa, when we talk about anger, like, ooh, something's not okay here. So we do honor that.
So it's like validating your feelings and then moving past them.
Right. Meaning incorporating, taking the second look and not making it only about your feelings. So it's that inner stillness.
Like when I called you and was asking for a little validation about
That
how
was
I was
great.
how I was feeling, because it allowed me to move through them. It wasn't
to
something
have empathy.
because I didn't need to change anything. I was understanding someone else's point of view and why they were defending themselves, why they were projecting that situation and how it made me feel. But I was able to transcend it by having empathy for her situation and asking questions.
And you went to curiosity, Riley, when you called and asked for our feedback. You're like, hey, I need to bounce something off. I am feeling anger about this. Am I crazy? And by you being validated, and then there was also the perspective that was given to you of why someone was behaving the way they were,
which I thought as well and believed. And so to me, it felt very good to feel the anger and be able to let go of it, because knowing it was justified, but also knowing that that's not something I'm trying to ever hold on to. That's not ever something that's even serving me, And so, but there is something healthy about being allowed to feel it, and not feeling like you're in the wrong when you're feeling it.
Yeah, and stuffing it down,
right?
Yeah, and saying it's not okay, yeah. So we can feel or know that something needs to be honored and protected, and still shift to a yes brain state that's open and flexible, and where we communicate respectfully. That's the infinity loop approach. I can honor the anger, but I can switch and hold and go into a yes brain. And so I can be respectful, which, remember the chapter on respect? The word means to re-see, spectacles. So you're taking a second look and you're looking at somebody with their humanity and divinity and empathy that can cause you to not lose your way. So you can hold both. So you will naturally be respectful. And when you're respectful, it naturally turns on your empathy.
It's like being able to feel your anger, but respond from love.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's something I'm always needing to refine and get better at.
Well,
I really do.
I think that's the point that it's the most difficult. Right?
Yeah, because it's more dangerous than the sword.
Yeah,
anger is a dangerous emotion. It is a dangerous emotion that we need great skill and humility and reverence and tools and wisdom and doing some very deep connecting ego work.
What really
like a lot of work around anger, to not stuff it, but to honor it too. Sorry.
What would just kept hitting me in the front of my head right now was that the root of most people's trauma is the anger they hold on to. I don't know where I got that or what. It just seems really to ring true of that the root of why people are dealing with most of their trauma still has to do with the anger they're still holding on to, right? You cannot process and get over a traumatic experience if you're still holding on to the anger of the person that did that to you, or the event that happened, or anything, because that is like a cancer that you're holding inside.
Well, some people, and I was just listening Carolyn Mace say this, is that some people were never valid. They never had the sacred witness of the trauma. They were like, you were raped. No, we're not going to talk about that. That didn't happen. There's no witness. There's no validation. So it's like when one needs the holy witness, the validation of the trauma, which we can also give ourselves to a degree when we honor our anger or honor our communication in this way, and how much it can help us work through our trauma. Because if it's said respectfully, we will more likely get our pain acknowledged, and then we are seen and heard and respected ourselves.
And you're able to let go of the anger.
It's easier to let go of the anger. Yeah. The yes brain state turns on what he calls the intermind between people. So he doesn't believe like the mind is the mind is somewhere here. And he's like, he calls it the inner mind. It's almost like it's between us. Maybe
like the collective consciousness.
It could be. It's like there's times when something will drop into my head and I'm thinking, I didn't even creatively think that, like that other person sent it to me. It's like there's something that's going on the inner mind.
Right.
And that is this level of interconnection of how empathy turns on another person's empathy that we're going to get into. So Siegel's work fits well with the tool I'm about to share with you. Here's one of the tools I use to help clients develop more empathy or turn on their empathy that is momentarily not activated. It comes from the customer service world that, frankly, the customer service world could utilize more often. When I've taught people how to connect with empathy for the other person who attacks them, their lives become much less stressful and their brains and bodies reward them with all the good chemicals that come from love, calm, and connection. They also become more successful at their jobs. I've seen and heard this used hundreds of times, and it's magical. It's made companies a lot of money and magically transformed relationships I've coached. I mean, I just used it today. And when you can give somebody, when you can go, I mean, we were talking about this before we started. Empathy can seem very counterintuitive. Like, why would I give someone empathy? It's because of the inner mind. Because when you show empathy, it more likely turns on their empathy. Almost always.
Well, what I was thinking about is the red pouch, and why
The chapter on the red pouch.
right?
Yeah.
And why we have empathy is because we've done that too.
We've
right?
done, that's the red pouch again, is what we're holding in our little red pouch is all the memories of how we have missed the mark of loving well.
Our mistakes, our shortcomings, and how
we see ourselves in another.
Right. And we resent it almost. So, and I think a lot of.
What do you mean we resent it almost?
Well, we resent that action, and we despise it so much in ourselves that we project it onto someone else, and then we shame them or, want to make them the bad guy or bad girl, or just separate. It's that separate and less than.
Yes,
not separate, but
superior,
equal.
And important.
Yeah.
We're so outraged, but we don't sit in inner stillness to go, ooh, when have I ever behaved like this person?
And then that's where the empathy comes from, because if you've behaved like that person, why wouldn't you have compassion and understand that they're, probably operating from their emotions, they're unregulated, they're triggered, they feel
defensive.
Unsafe.
They feel unsafe. They're just trying to take care of themselves. They're just trying to get their needs met.
And most people don't have the tools to communicate what they really need.
Yeah, that's what's happening at the time, is we're just trying to get our needs met. Really, we're just trying to take care of ourselves. So if we gave everyone first-class customer service and helped turn on others' empathy, we would change the world. Here's a better option besides just getting our voice. Our voice can make sweet music for the world. That's so often what is said is, I need to have my voice. I need to stand up for what, and we think that's the answer, but it's in the separate self. It's not connected. So it's
the separate superior self.
Yes.
Really. It's not I'm being attacked. Let me actually just protect myself and love myself. It's I'm being attacked. I'm going to play the victim and flip it on you to where now I am like that victim power thing where
and I may feel, and it may not even play the victim. I'm playing the victim because I believe I'm the victim, or I think I'm being victimized. Right.
Okay, yeah.
I am being victimized by a company. I'm being victimized by someone, quote unquote, bullying me, but it's true. I'm now going into this victim mentality, like you said.
Right. So even if you are being victimized, the victim mentality response, in my opinion, is never the correct one, because that's not one that serves you or the person that's victimizing you. Like, if anything, it just gives them more power, right? Because you're admitting that they have this much power over you.
Interesting. Yeah. Ooh. Okay. So it's I call it develop to give the reflex of E.A.R, E.A.R. And this, again, I did not come up with this. This was a tool found in the customer service world. But I mean, I have never taught this to anyone where someone goes, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. It's always like, wow, I've never heard of such a thing. So it's an acronym, E.A.R. E stands for empathize, A for apologize, and R for redirect.
Right.
So someone acts rude, unaware, and entitled to us. Okay, so say that's the customer that's coming at you and they're just being super rude. Okay,
yeah.
That there's not enough vegan things at your carnivore restaurant.
Yes.
Okay, we feel our anger, and either we are shocked and acquiesce to their tantrum and lose sleep over what we should have said to put them in their place, or we set them straight right there. However, rarely will we win, and it's certainly not hashtag love wins. Does that make sense what I said?
I mean, anytime you're trying to set someone straight, that's as if they don't have a right to feel their feelings.
Yeah, but it's condescending, and it's condescending. The rude person will most likely not have their empathy turned on toward us or feel appropriate shame. Recall what we read in the chapter called Loving Well. Shaming isn't effective in changing the world or influencing another. It's emotionally incompetent, and the history and the study in social sciences have proven the futility in it. So shaming people, we keep doing it, and it doesn't work. It does not turn on their empathy.
I mean, I can only think about...
It's disconnected.
I would say from my own experience, I get triggered the opposite. You know, like when someone tries to shame me into a direction, even if I wanted to go in that direction
and feel shame for your behavior,
right? But because they're trying to shame me, it's like my defensive go up and go, nope, you're wrong. I will not be shamed by you.
Yeah,
and it's like maybe even I should have been, but because of trying to shame me, instead of trying to go, hey, maybe this wasn't the most helpful way of approaching this, they just immediately go, oh, you're bad for this action.
Right, because what they've actually turned on, this just happened to me the other day, and where someone was shaming me, and when I could have seen the sliver of truth, because of the way they did it, which I found spiritually abusive, is the opposite of how I would want to coach somebody to see something. It turned on actually appropriate anger in me of what I would protect. Going, oh my God, I don't want to. This is not right the way they're talking to me, and so I just felt so much anger inside.
I would say they talk to you as if you are your actions. And I understand we are the collective of our actions, but as if we can't make one mistake and adjust. As if you did this one bad thing and this is who you are for the rest of your life. And that's where that shaming comes from. And I think that's where that defense comes from of going, yeah, maybe I did make that mistake, but I am not that mistake. I am still this person, but you were talking to me as if that is my entire identity.
Oh, and it was like, it was naming what would be in my heart.
Well, as if they could assume what your intention was.
Because of my tone of voice for like an entire people and they cut me off so they didn't even feel, I had the opposite feelings than they assumed. But again, it's like, I didn't feel empathy and go, oh, let me see where you could have a sliver of truth of what you're telling me. I was like, the anger rose up in me. So yes, it's completely ineffective to shame people.
If we think of that person as a customer that we want to keep, we will care to use more sophisticated communication skills to try to reach them and influence them for the better. We step into the infinity loop where we feel safe and strong. We don't have to feel threatened by their reaction, and we don't have to threaten them back. We've switched our brain states.
Yeah. exactly. We went from a no brain to a yes brain. The person who's angry with us, our dog, our company, product, our kid, comes at us to defend their point of view and how we've wronged them. They aren't aware of empathy and how they act. Their focus is to make sure no one stops their speech. When we don't defend our position or debate them in how they're wrong, we unexpectedly and paradoxically will often get them to see where they're in the wrong, a contributor to the problem, or at least aware that their behavior isn't kind. So this, when I was a customer service trainer, we would work in call centers where you would have all these angry customers. And it was about something they actually did contribute to the problem. Like they pushed a button agreeing to something and then are saying, oh my gosh, you're charging me again. And when we talk,
like they agreed to like a monthly prescription, thinking it was subscription,
or some return policy or something. And they would act very rude. And the agents at first were like, I'm not going to be treated this way. I have to defend myself. And it was a shit show when they would come back and defend themselves and defend the company. And it wasn't working. And you teach them this tool going, oh, no, they just need to be, you just realize this is what's going on in their brain. You give them empathy paradoxically because you drop into the connection, the red pouch of going, wow, either when have I behaved this way or how could I have empathy of why I would ever feel the same way? And you express it in this E.A.R, this E.A.R. The customer, 85% of the time, 90% of the time, shame naturally would turn on in them because you're so kind and it's the inner mind. It would go, oh my God, this person's being so nice. I'm so ashamed of my behavior. And shame in a
healthy way, because you're not shaming them. They're having
their healthy shame is rising up.
And they're adjusting their attitude based on that shame.
And maybe you want to call it a different word. I don't know. I'm still under the camp we're using that shame can be turned on healthy. We don't live in it, but it's like, ooh, I should feel bad for my behavior right now. And the connection, and now you can work with them. They just needed to feel heard. They needed to connect. And when we connect, it causes our behavior to become at a higher level, more loving.
We breathe. Take the second look to see beyond their behavior. We're critical of the person with needs underneath. However unskillfully they're communicating in that moment, set an intention. How can I bring the most peace to this situation? How can I step into the infinity loop and connect awareness and inquiry?
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't work if we say the words but don't feel empathy. There's a magic that happens between us humans, our brains, our hearts, our interminds, as Siegel calls it. When it's real, the other's brain lights up and usually mirrors back the empathy. Mm-hmm. You have activated that connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just what I was saying. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's magical. I mean, and then it makes the customer service job so easy and so delightful and so fulfilling to live in such a connected place. So let empathy for them hit you in your belly. If you were them in their mental model, you would see how stressed they'd be. We feel empathy from there. When we speak in response to that hit in our gut. That's our connection to them. And I wrote, remember the aspen. And that's the chapter where we realize that underneath all the roots, we're actually one big organism. So it is that inner stillness of letting someone else's experience hit us, and they're yelling at us, and we're going, I get it. I feel what you're feeling.
Very powerful.
What were you going to say?
Oh, just how much this stuff makes you a happier person.
Yeah.
No matter what's happening in your life,
Yeah.
you're able to roll with the punches so much easier because you don't take the attacks against you personally.
Yeah. I mean, you can do this over and over again, even in one conversation, giving someone ear, giving ear to your children, to your spouse, to this person, that, like all day long, to people you're working with. You can just keep giving this and it's magical. Okay. They're feeling respected, seen, and heard. They probably behave the way they do because they need to feel seen. You do all three parts without pause. When you empathize, it's real. When you apologize, it's real. When you redirect, it's real. Here are 2 examples of it all put together, and then I have examples of each one of them. So empathize would be...
Empathize. I understand how you would be disappointed by this right now. Apologize. I'm sorry you're struggling and for the pain and loss you're feeling. Redirect. However, it would be unwise and unhealthy for me to engage with your sister at this time because of all that's gone on and how angry I'm feeling. I need to honor it and process it and establish boundaries around how I am treated.
So if you notice here, the empathy, the example that I had written, we empathize. I empathize with you. I understand how you would feel. The apology is, I'm sorry you're struggling and for the pain and loss you're feeling. So I'm apologizing for their pain, and there's a time
not for your actions.
Yeah, because sometimes you're apologizing for your actions because you caused it, but not always. And it's interesting.
Most of the time in customer service, never.
Yeah, but you could be apologizing for the company.
Right.
But like if someone's really struggling, but you didn't do anything wrong, there's still the point of apology. And it's an interesting thing. It happened to me twice today. I apologized for someone struggling. They go, why are you apologizing? You didn't cause it. And I had to go, what I'm saying is I'm sorry that's happened to you.
Well, isn't that empathy?
Yeah, but it's interesting that they think, why are you apologizing? You didn't do it. It's still a reaction when someone says, I'm really sorry you're struggling, or I'm sorry you're happening. They're like, why are you sorry? It's like, because I'm empathizing with you.
Because I have compassion for the struggle you're going through.
I'm empathizing with you. Yeah. So, they might give in your life, that might be a reaction to some people when you say, doesn't that happen to you sometimes? When you go, yeah. And they're like, why are you sorry?
Well, I think, again, that has more to do with people not comfortable with feeling empathy.
They're not used to getting empathy. Right. And so they're like, where's this empathy coming from?
And why is this? And I think it's almost more weird when you're getting empathy from the person they want the empathy from is the person that inflicted the damage on them, but now they're getting the empathy from someone else, and that's why they almost reject it and go, why are you saying sorry? You didn't do this. Because they want to hear the sorry, they just want to hear it from someone else.
That's interesting. Yeah. Empathize. I would feel that way too if that happened to me. I understand how stressful this must be for you. I hear how upset you are. I felt like that way too. I empathize with how angry and frightened you are right now and how hurt you feel. It's important to stress to you when we apologize, we are sorry for their suffering. This is basically what we were just saying, and our own contribution to it if we did, but we are not taking responsibility for being the cause of their pain if we're not, unless we're representing a company that was in the wrong.
Yeah, to me, what was really coming is what I find is abusive when people tell you're making me feel this way, as if you have control over my feelings. I've lost control. Now you're in control and you're making me feel this way. I think it is actually abusive when people say that to you. When they say you're making me feel this way, it's like, oh, so you are so unable to regulate your emotions that you're feeling some type of way because of my actions. My actions might even be wrong. But again, it's not that they're even addressing the actions. They're addressing their feelings and coming from the victimhood again, and immediately going, I'm a victim because of what you're pointing out. I don't feel safe now because of words you might be saying, instead of going, oh, there might be some truth there, or I don't like that action. Let me speak out about that. They immediately fall back to.
Yes. And, it's just a lack of education, I think, that's been a lazy habit in society. Would you stop that? You're making me feel, you're making me feel, you're making me feel. And I'm even thinking, I fall into that, or have fallen into
I
that.
think it's an encouraged thing in society.
Instead of saying, I am feeling this right now, based on this is how I am feeling.
Well, because I feel like
it's a very important distinction you're bringing up.
In society right now, we are encouraged to express our feelings as if they are facts. And if anyone makes you feel a certain way, it's not your responsibility to regulate your feelings and be a strong, healthy adult. It's now become your responsibility to communicate those feelings and make everyone adjust accordingly, as if we have to always be sensitive of everyone's feelings all the time.
All the time.
And
which
it's like,
we can't.
And
why
would we, when people aren't I want to care about people's feelings always. But if you can't regulate your feelings and emotions, how am I supposed to? So that's when it comes down to that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to regulate their internal feelings with external actions. And that's not how our internal feelings work, right? They have to do with the internal work we put on ourselves and the work we're always working on spiritually.
Yeah.
But as long as you are relying on someone else's actions affecting your emotions, you're never in control of yourself.
Wow. That's an interesting point. It's you have to learn how to ride the waves. And when someone can do something that can really trigger an emotion in you based on your own interior landscape, because it can maybe not trigger the next person.
If I can trigger emotion from you and a response, who's in charge of you? If I know by saying this, I'm going to get a response out of you, well, who's in charge of your body? Sounds like I'm in charge of your body because I know how to press your buttons and trigger you because you have lost the ability to regulate yourself. Now you are being regulated by someone else. And I think that is where a lot of these problems come from, of people not being regulated. They can't regulate themselves, so they're trying to regulate everyone else and control the world around them because they have lost the ability to regulate their own emotions.
Right. So if someone's in an abusive relationship where they really have lost their ability to self-regulate because somebody is manipulating them,
gaslighting.
Yeah. So you would need an outside support to help you strategize of how to create protection from someone who would be messing with your emotions and just totally.
Yes. I mean, that is an extreme situation. I just believe most people catastrophize situations, especially emotional ones, into a much worse than the reality. Right.
So what you're basically saying is that we set up relationships, the container relationships, where we no longer ever make someone else responsible for all of our feelings. We can say, when you said that, I interpreted that way. That really did not feel good. That's how it contributed to my experience that I am having. I'm owning my experience of what you said or did.
Presenting data about why you feel something is not going, you're making me feel this way. That's presenting actions that are saying why you're feeling something, and you're taking responsibility for that feeling and just saying that those actions played a role in it. You're not blaming them for your feelings. You're just saying that their actions played into your feelings. Mm-hmm. And then when you then go for a question of well, then why did you do that? That turns on their empathy.
Yeah, that can in most cases.
Because again, most of the time people don't want to hurt their feelings. But if you start telling someone that you're making them feel that way, they're going to become defensive.
Right.
Because they're not, first of all, they probably didn't mean to do that.
Right.
And again, you're now giving them power over you. So why
and
would
you're
they
taking power over them? Like
Right.
they can no longer have their experience or do their reaction
because you're making them feel a certain way.
Yeah, they can't have their truth. Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Apologize. I'm sorry for what you're going through. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. I'm so sorry my dog scares your dog. I'm sorry for the confusion. I'm sorry if I come off unappreciative of your suggestions.
Redirect. Is there somehow we can make this work for us? I'd love to hear more about your process of how you think this should work. This isn't helpful for me right now, so I need us to change the subject. I'm not okay with the way you made fun of me because I didn't know how to use the lighter. Is there another way you can communicate with me your frustration?
The redirect can be inquiry, which was like good on a few of those, like on that last one, you know?
I was going to say that last one was probably my
really
favorite.
good. Yeah. A boundary like that one is, I need to change the subject right now. That's not okay. Or that's not okay that you're doing this. Or how you express your process that's open to feedback, which is like the ladder of inference. Like, oh, can you somehow figure out a way to make this work? So remember the ladder of inference where we get down the ladder and we really look at where we are making our own
assumptions.
Yeah, we're making our assumptions. It can be your honest disappointment at what doesn't work, or it may be open up a dialogue that creates learning. Alpha women are humble, honest, and curious. We want to express our boundaries in connection and understanding around our no. When people just throw out this disconnected boundaries with no, I call it fluffy bread. It's like throwing a slab of meat. No, they just need to do it this way versus, I can understand, but like making it easier for someone to hear you. That's what the technique of E.A.R is. It is making it easier for someone to hear your boundaries. We need fluffy bread around the meat of the issue to influence the other. We soften our harsh assessments of others so they can metabolize the truth. Approach matters. It's grace and gentleness. That's our yes brain state. Our redirect may be back to why someone originally ordered a product. Perhaps it's Socratic questions to get them to illustrate with data their point of view. Since we're obviously not bound by a company rules to keep a customer, we focus this tool on being connected and not in our separate, superior, and important ego states. We empathize from our fullness. We apologize for their suffering without our need to own it's our fault if it's not. We immediately redirect them so that we move on to solutions. Now we're in the infinity loop and practice all the tools and principles in this book to grow in emotional intelligence while learning how to love well, while practicing elegant and intelligent self-care. So it's very important when you do this, the E.A.R, there's no break. Because if you leave a break, they're just going to keep going on and on and on. And there's no closure to move on to solutions.
Well, it's like you're bringing them out of the mud with the redirect, right? You're going,
I'm
so sorry you're in the mud. Me apologize. Like first the empathy, then we're apologizing, pulling you out of the mud. And then the redirect, we maybe start washing you off. But if you don't get to the redirect, they pull you into the mud.
Oh God, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
The other party will most often adjust their behavior and apologize. Yeah, I'm taking my anger out on you, but I know it's not really your fault. I apologize. I know you just work there. You didn't do this. Sometimes people intensity towards us is because they're afraid of being run over themselves, and they had to muster up a lot to shoot out what they said. I know I have been very angry at a company and gotten on the phone with customer service and really emphasized to them, hey, I know this isn't your fault. I am very upset about what is going on. I'm not trying to take this out on you, but my energy is going to be a little elevated right now. And the compassion and understanding that these people usually have is like, yeah, feel free to yell at me, because they understand that I'm not actually yelling at them, because I've already diffused the kind of situation of, hey, I'm coming at this very upset, but I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming the company, and I know you can help me out. And it's amazing. I mean, I've had people really go, hey, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, come on. You know, I understand you're angry. Kind of, let it out.
Good.
Like
That's good.
because again, you're not attacking them as a person. And by prefacing that, you can open it up.
Yeah.
Some people are in pain in body, mind, and spirit. That's why we're here, and come with a golden infinity loop.
We don't become less than them. We get so good at being in the loop. Anything they say, we redirect them to help them examine their own stories, and for us to possibly see what we don't see. So that could be like,
do you really believe that?
I'm so glad to get a chance to talk to you, because your dog humped my dog endlessly last week, and I didn't know what to do either. Ha ha ha. I'm sure. It's interesting. I read there's something. Well, that sounds patronizing when you say that, and I'm like, you can say it in a way that's not patronizing. You can say it in a really connected way, because it is kind of a funny thing to say. And I got this from a story of a client that was, she'd been working with me in the Infinity Loop. I was developing her in her career, and then her dog was, ran over to another dog at a dog park, and this old lady just screamed bloody murder at her. And then she thought all night about how she wanted to tell her off. And we worked at this going, you know what, let's go back to this chapter and remember. And she said, this dog was harassing my dog the week before. And so it is kind of going, it's really good we're talking about this, because I have some of the same feelings of where our dogs are kind of bugging each other.
Well, that's so great too, of using of kind of like a low stakes example, but where there's the emotions can become really high, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the dogs are fine no matter what. No matter how much that dog was humping the other dog,
scared.
They're going to survive.
Yeah.
But the emotions are still very real. And when someone is not regulating their emotions, they're going to lash out at others.
So we regulate.
Right, and we can help them regulate.
Because the Infinity Loop is about connecting to your own abundance. The abundance of I'm okay, my ego can be in a safe place because it's held by my essence, which is, the ultimate infinite self that can show empathy. We can be the most regulated person in the room. We can be the calm person in the room. We can be the loving parent to someone's out of control, fearful child. And it's not tit for tat, that example about the dog. It's really like, I'm getting to be honest about my needs too. I'm not becoming less than. I'm getting to say what is a boundary for me. You know what? I am having problem with your dog too. So we can figure out how to get our dogs to be more, work together a little bit better at this dog park. So E.A.R. The E is, I hear your pain and anger and what you're so upset about. Okay. So that is the E.A.R. I hear your pain and anger and what you're so upset about. The A, I'm so sorry for how I contributed to it, or I am so sorry for what you're going through. Immediately the redirect. However, I need to hang up right now because the intensity of your rage and accusations aren't helpful or loving to me.
Or another way would be, I don't believe we can solve this problem in the way you're communicating to me.
Yeah.
Right? Of like something so simple of like, this isn't a way to solve this, you're just attacking me.
this is such a good example. And this is why these tools are lifelong tools. And what I wrote about in this book is the very things that I needed to, they say you teach the thing you need to learn the most. I am bringing this up because it's so helpful, but because I need it. And I know of a situation that happened in 2017 where somebody got on the phone projecting all their fear and pain on me, and I allowed it. And it caused so much unbelievable trauma in my body.
I think I know what you're talking about. I don't think you not only allowed it, but you embodied it.
I embodied it. I went into menopause the next day. And I knew I went into menopause.
You took everything they said as if it was the ultimate truth.
I pushed so heavy on empathy of giving them the space
that you were dysregulating yourself.
To rage. It was so dark and hateful and shaming, and it was so abusive. And I allowed it, it took me 7 months to heal from some of the things that were said. And the person came the next day, showed at my door to apologize, but my system took it in. And if only I had the skill, which I started writing this, and I knew the skill, I'd been teaching this skill, but I pushed too heavy on empathy. Instead of going, let me call this woman Sam. And if I had just said, Sam, which got her attention, you know what? I hear your pain and anger and what you're so upset about. I'm so sorry for however I have contributed. However, I need to hang up right now because the intensity of your rage and accusations aren't helpful or loving to me right now. Boom. So that's the loving well by practicing elegant and intelligent self-care. And that's where, the infinity loop is about balance. And we can be too heavy in empathy and not have step back in healthy self-regard. And we can expose, and you know what? I've done that again with clients, like raging narcissists. And I'm sitting there feeling so much empathy. Instead of going, okay, I hear it and I'm so sorry. We're going to have this conversation another time because this is not helpful. And it can take you out to subject yourself to that.
We don't want our empathy to overregulate our healthy boundaries.
You don't mean overregulate, I mean override.
Override, thank you. That is
right.
Yeah.
We don't want our empathy to override our healthy boundaries. It is always the both and.
So remember, you create a learning container through inquiry. We've said this all the time. The more you ask questions, the more you bring someone's defenses down, and the more you bring them into the conversation instead of keeping them out of it. Mm-hmm. And so with that all being said, without hurtful or unhelpful points of view, right? So you're not asking condescending questions. You're not asking rhetorical questions. You're asking real heartfelt questions that you are open to the response. You're curious, listening.
Yeah, to their point of view, their experience, or helping them think through something from a very empathetic, humble way.
Well, again, we just want to thank you guys so much for joining us on this journey. And as we get to the end of another chapter, we hope these tools are helpful for you, and we hope to see you again.